you. Thank you, everyone. Wow, isn't it great to have a spring day where the rain is slowly working its way out? The sun is coming out to help us think about this topic of being clutter-free. How many people right now would identify themselves as maybe having a few more possessions than they really want to have? Okay, well then you're in the right place. That's good. Because for the next hour, that's really what we're going to focus in on, is what is too much and how do we get there, and then how do we take the too much and make it just right so we can go from cluttered to clutter-free. So here's what I want you to start with. I want you to start with, and you can close your eyes if you like to, but I want you to envision in your mind your dream house. Your dream house. Walk inside the front door, take a look and see what does the living room look like. How about when you get to the hallway and you go down and look at a bedroom or two, or come back to the bathroom or the kitchen? How do you see it appearing to you? Think about the possessions that are in there. I'm going to bet that as you've looked at that home in your mind and envisioned it, it isn't filled with clutter. Am I right? Yeah, exactly. But it's tough to move from clutter to clutter-free because we have a lot of stuff, right? And you probably have wondered, well, where did all this stuff come from? There's furniture, there's knickknacks, there's other accessories, there's dishes, there's papers, there's sporting goods. I've got things about hobbies and crafts. I've got garage tools. I've got books. I've got peripherals to computers and electronics, and on and on and on. It's a lot of stuff, isn't it? And it isn't so much that you intended to live cluttered, is it? No, none of us intend for that. So we have to figure out, where did this stuff come from? And there's 4 reasons why, at this point in time, we end up with all this stuff. So one of them is the effects of the Great Depression. Most of us in this room are probably children of, or children of the children of depression. In other words, our parents maybe were adults or young adults going through the Depression, and then we came along after that. And so they experienced firsthand what it was like not to have the opportunity for things, everyday things that we take for granted. Gift wrap during the Depression. What did people use for gift wrap? Newspapers. Newspapers, yeah. And there wasn't enough money to go out and buy gift wrap. I mean, we're trying to buy food here. You know, we have other priorities and other essentials. I grew up in a household of children of the Depression, as a child of someone who grew up in the Depression. And so I learned from my parents that you just didn't waste anything, right? You used something until it was really done. You really you fixed things if they broke, and you use them. I can remember my mother often saying, "Do you really need a paper towel for that?" Right? Yeah? Or we had cleaning rags. Anything that used to be a piece of clothing, if it was made out of cotton, usually became a cleaning rag or a cleaning cloth. We had a whole canvas bag in the basement just full of 4 kids worth of t-shirts and other things that no longer were wearable, but made good cleaning cloths, because you wouldn't go out and buy that. You wouldn't spend money on that. So we all grew up with these values of things being passed on to us, of our thoughts about what value do they have, and not letting go of things because we might need them someday, right? And it would be bad if we didn't have them. Other people would think we were foolish to give away or throw away things. Anybody ever feel that way? Yeah, wonder? Well, they might think, what if I needed that and I had just gotten rid of it? People would think I'm silly, I'm foolish, I'm wasteful. So these values kind of stick with us, and they make it hard for us to let go of things. We just continue to keep them, right? How many people feel this is a big reason for some of their stuff, their possessions? Okay, so for quite a few of you. Another reason is this concept of inheritance absorption. Does everybody know what I mean by that? Yep, you're living it, aren't you? You've had parents or aunts and uncles or cousins or even friends that maybe have passed away or no longer can live in the home they lived in for a number of years. And so for them, they wanted to pass their things on. And if you couldn't say no, that means they came to your home. Now, I want you to be really clear about one important thing about getting things in this situation or when you acquire them. When, especially, we're dealing with somebody in transition, and if that transition has been death, we're in grief. So it's very hard to make decisions at that point of reference to let go, because everything feels like we're letting go of that person, just one more step towards not having them in our life. And we can get that false sense of security. Well, if I just have all the furniture from mom and dad's house, if I just have those rugs, if I just have all their books, if I just have all their artwork, it will feel like they're here with me. It won't feel so bad. And to let go then feels doubly worse because it feels like we're losing them again. Anybody relate to that? Yeah, of course. So don't feel bad about having acquired those things at the time and holding on to them. But you don't have to stay in that place. You can at some point in time look at those things that you have acquired and inherited through those circumstances and say, hey, you know, at the time I thought maybe I would use that secretary desk, but I really don't have room for it in my home and it really doesn't fit my style. I really should let it go. Those things can happen, and we'll be talking later today about how that happens. One of the things to also identify with this idea of inheritance absorption is that sometimes we hold on to things not just because of that physical attachment for sentiment, seeing and touching it and feeling like we're with the person, we do it out of guilt. And this can be true when maybe that person's transitioned from a home to a senior building or assisted living. They're still with us, but in order to make it easy for them to let go, they needed us to say yes. And because we felt guilty, we said yes. How many of you identify with that? Yeah, exactly. So one of the things that I want you to know is that you don't have to be on the hook for that guilt. You really can let yourself off the hook by understanding and realizing that it was just making things easier for them. And if it doesn't work for you, you're just the connector. You're going to connect that piece to somebody else who it will work for. And once you've done that, you've been a good caretaker of that item. And so the guilt really doesn't apply anymore. If that person's already passed away, they're not feeling anything about those possessions anymore. They're not important to them. It doesn't matter to them. They're not here anymore. Whatever you believe happens to them after this, the stuff here can't possibly be important. So the guilt that you are holding on to is really false guilt. You can really let that go too. Okay, staying in place. Another way to say this is aging in place. What we're seeing is more and more of us in the boomer generation and in the silent generation are holding on to our living circumstances longer. So instead of necessarily moving and going to a senior building, we might stay in the house that we've been in for several years, maybe 20, 30, 40 years. And we're making modifications so that we can stay living in that particular space. How many of you are finding you're in that kind of situation? So when that's the case, we continue to have acquired things, but because we haven't moved, we haven't been challenged to let go and to really sort through and make the hard decisions. We've been able to keep everything, even if it might be cluttered, even if our spaces might be full in storage, we still feel like, well, I'm here and I'll make that decision when I need to, when I need to go, when I need to leave. So that's the really interesting part, is that we're staying there, but we're still acquiring more things because we're living there and things aren't going out the back door as they're coming in the front door, so to speak. Interestingly, I've had a lot of people call me and talk about a parent who they say they think is hoarding. And it will be a parent probably in their 70s. They'll have lived in that house for maybe 40 years or more. And they'll say, they have stuff everywhere. There's hardly any room to walk. And it won't be like a traditional hoarded home. It won't be the little pathways through, but the perception will be that there's something going on. If I were to ultimately meet with that family, what I have often found is that it's not about the attachment to items, which is what happens in hoarding. People get a significantly stronger attachment to everyday things or things that people typically would throw away or eliminate in their life. What's happening instead is that people have acquired things, but they've just not dispensed with anything. They've not let go of things because they haven't had to. And so it looks like you're hoarding, but you're not, because when I work with those people and we go through the process hands-on of sorting through closets and storage areas and garages and attics, they don't have an unusual attachment to a lot of things, and many things can go. So just be aware of that if somebody you know might be saying that about your thinking that. And then personal preferences. That really has another piece in the circumstance here. Some of us are very creative types. We like to be involved in a lot of projects. We like to be surrounded by a lot of color, a lot of stuff. And if that's how you are and that's what makes you comfortable, then your home may look more cluttered compared to, let's say, some of the typical Scandinavians of Minnesota who like things to be kind of a sterile, clean, neat, orderly kind of environments, right? Yeah, you know what I'm talking about here. So there's just a difference there. That's not to say one is right and one is wrong, but it can feel as if your space is more cluttered than it should be based on how other people see it. I had to laugh because years ago I went out to visit a friend of mine in Boston. And you know, in the Boston area, there's a lot of people who immigrated from England who live in that space. And she was complaining to me how hard it is to get someone to come in and clean the house and actually lift up everything from a table, dust underneath it, and put everything back. The reason being that in our homes, for instance, we have a lamp on a table, and we might have a couple of other things there. You go out east and you look at a little end table, and there's a lamp, and there's two things over here and two things over there, and a little figure here, and a little coaster there, and a little dish over here, because they have all these things that they've inherited over years, and they love to have stuff out. So the cleaning people won't pick everything up and put it all back down because they say it takes too much time. So there's, again, a kind of a difference, if you will, about culturally, about how somebody looks at their space and what they have there. So we've got all this stuff, and you're faced with the idea that you're going to be transitioning here at some point in time. Let me ask, of those of you who are here today, how many of you plan to transition to a different home, different living circumstance within the next 6 months? Anybody? So you're pretty soon on your deadline. How about in the next year? Okay, I've got a few more. How about in the next 18 months? Maybe. 2 years? 2 years? And the rest of you are just going to stay where you are, right? Yeah. How many people are thinking about the fact that they'll have to do a lot of decluttering when they in the future move? Okay, so that makes sense, because that's the closer you get to it, the more nervous you are. I loved when, is this your friend or? Yeah, I love when she said 6 months and you went, oy. It's like, this is my friend and I'm going to be having to help her in the next 6 months. And then I'm going to have to do my house, right? Well, you might find it interesting to know that this is according to census data, of the people in the United States who are 60 years of age and older, every year, 15% of that population moves. 15% of our population is included in that 60 and over and are moving. That's about 4.2 million people each year are moving and leaving and taking their stuff and going somewhere else. And you know what they're doing? They're downsizing. For the first time in their lives, and the first time in your life, I bet, you're going to leave that house you've been in for how many years? 38 years. And your intention is going to be to live in a smaller house, and that means you're intending to also live with less stuff. Right? Yeah. And that's the crux here. That's the hard part. You've been able to have what you've had because you had the right size house. But now you're going to change that, and you're going to try to live with people or live in a circumstance where there's so much less. And that means that you're going to have to declutter, right? You're going to have to make some choices about moving from cluttered to clutter-free. Now, you may not know this, but there are actually two kinds of decluttering. Did anybody know that? I think you'll find this interesting. This is what I have observed in working with families for more than 25 years, that there's two different distinct ways that we declutter. Most of us think of decluttering as that action where we look at our possessions and we make a decision about, is this of value to me, or is this of use to me that continues to earn a place for me to hold on to it? Or has it outlived its usefulness, or that I don't like it anymore and that I don't need it anymore and I can let it go? That's what we usually think of. But that's not true for all decluttering. The first kind of decluttering, and it's the one that we do fairly frequently, is what I call maintenance decluttering. And the reason I want to cover these with you is so that you're not confused over the activity of one to the activity of the other. So with maintenance clearing of space, this is the kind of tidying up or picking up that we tend to do with the things that we have left out and not put away, or that we have left out because we're continuing to use it or we want it visually where we can see it. In my house growing up, that was always done on Saturday. Saturday is pick it all up and put it away day. It was also tied with cleaning, so it made sense that that's what we're going to do. Everybody had to pick up their room, everything in the family room had to be put away, everything in the playroom had to be put away. It didn't matter that you're going to take it out and use it again in another hour. It was the time to do that. So a lot of us have a routine about once a week picking things up. That's one of the reasons why we do it. Another is my favorite that I hear from clients, oh, the cleaning lady is coming tomorrow. So we gotta clean the house, right? Everybody thinks it's clean the house, but it's not. It's picking up and decluttering maintenance of the stuff that we have around. Or another one, we might have friends who are coming over. Oh my gosh, we've got to pick up the family room. We can't have dessert and coffee with our friends after the meeting and have all that stuff and that clutter in there. We've got to pick it up and put it away. So predominantly when it comes to maintenance clearing of space, all the things have homes. We just haven't put them back there. And so we just kind of do this on a regular basis. Now that's different than the deep clearing of space. When we're talking about deep clearing of space, this is the thing that maybe we used to refer to as spring cleaning. You know, when you would maybe go through your clothing closet in the spring or in the fall, again a transition time, and sort through, or in the garage. You know how many of the guys are out there in the next few weeks getting through the garage, making sure that snowblower gets stored, get that lawnmower out, get the rakes out that you're going to need, the garden tools, kind of making almost a transition there of some of the stuff we use. But at the same time, we sort of review and look at things. So it's things that we maybe haven't used for a while when we're deep clearing of space, or it's things that have an event that's happening that causes us to go through them. If there was a graduation party, That'd be a reason why you might have to go through. Or let's say you have a child who wants to have a small wedding at your house. Holy cow, are we going to have to do some deep cleaning, deep clearing of space in order to make that happen? So transitions of those type can have an effect. It also can result in us having possessions that are ready to now leave because we've gone beyond that activity and we haven't made that choice yet. So let's say you used to be a big camping family, but now your idea of camping is, minimum Holiday Inn, but maybe a Marriott. Then you probably don't need the tent and all of the sleeping bags and the cook stove and those types of things. So this is more deep clearing of what those things are. So maintenance clearing, we're talking about the open, active areas in our home, our entry areas, which easily can get littered, can't they, through the week with stuff that we like with some of our clients to call it shop and drop. Went to the store, got what we needed, boom, drop it there. Although that can be dangerous if you have refrigerated items that need to get handled. Or it can be in the kitchen counter and the island. Always get cluttered, don't they? And filled with stuff throughout the week as we're living in our space. So this really is our frequently used possessions. It's about the stuff that every day is a part of it. And it only becomes clutter because we don't put it back where it's supposed to be. When it comes to the deep clearing of space, now we're talking about areas like closets and cabinets. Where do we have our storage? In the garage, in the basement, back in the car. I know you're laughing because that's your basement, isn't it? I know, I pulled it off of the web, but somebody took a picture of somebody's house and put it up there for us to all share and look at. When it comes to these storage areas, we may not have been thoroughly through them for quite some time. Is that true for a lot of you? Yeah, where it's like, do we really need to go through everything in the attic? Couldn't we just pull down some decorations and take a look at those? These are things that have been what I like to call dormant for a while. So if you're in a clothing closet and there's dust that has accumulated on the shoulder areas of sport coats or blazers or dresses, that's a real good indicator that these are things that can probably be let go, that you haven't been working in that space for a while. I like this gentleman's laughing there looking at the woman next to him. I think, or is that a woman? Oh no, it's a guy. Sorry. Thinking about, there you go. Oh, okay. That's why, I get it now. You're thinking she's got a few things like that in the closet. Yep. That's... I always love how helpful spouses are in these seminars to volunteer their spouse for some review or another. Another characteristic of these spaces is that the items there have kind of just been forgotten. There are some of us who are very visual in how we process stuff, and in organizing we have a saying, if you can't see it, you don't own it. So for a lot of people, it's sort of like they get into these closets and like, oh, I forgot all about that. Oh, that's funny. Or I've been looking for that forever. I don't know where it went to. So there's a plus in doing this kind of decluttering because you might come up with a few treasures that have been hidden from you. But you also find out that there are a lot of things like hobbies and crafts that you used to do, that you used to be interested in, but not so much anymore. As a matter of fact, I find it very interesting that all the kind of creative endeavors of my clients, when they master something, whether that's in sewing or quilting or in woodworking, once they've mastered a certain kind of way of doing something, they sort of go on to a new challenge. Because that's part of what creativity is. You don't kind of keep doing the same thing over and over again. You usually look for a new challenge, right? And to try something different. And we don't go back to that stuff, but we keep all the materials. Because of course, as creative people, we know that that yarn could be used for lots of things. And those blocks of wood, you don't want to get rid of those. because those could be part of a new project. So this is our time to get challenged about that. Holiday decorations. We've just come out of Easter. How many of you celebrated Easter at your home? And then how many of you decorated your home this year for Easter the way you used to when your kids were little? Anybody? Yeah, that was almost, oh, okay, there, you're younger. That's you're still in the age group. For most of us, as we get older, it isn't so much about creating that ambience and all the decorations, having that little tree with the bunny rabbits and the ducks hanging on it, and hiding all the eggs and all the rest of it we do. You know, we don't need to grow grass and put our hard-boiled eggs in the centerpiece anymore. We just want to be with the people, don't we? We just want to have a good meal with some great people and family and enjoy that time. But how many of you still have all of those Easter decorations, right? Yeah, we haven't let go of them. So that's another piece that's kind of forgotten, but still useful for somebody. If we're not going to use them, we can pass them on to somebody else. There's also an issue around books. How many book lovers have I got here? Quite a few? Yeah. It's hard to eliminate books, isn't it? I understand that. I have worked with lots of people trying to find a magic wand trick that will help, and there isn't one. But I think that this is a good way to look at them, is that they're forgotten, but they could be useful for someone else. Because again, kind of like the crafting things, very few of us read a book and then reread that book, even if we really liked it, because there's always another book that we want to read, right? There's always something else on the horizon. So those books that are old loves, shall we say, just stay on the shelves and they collect dust. But they could be useful to somebody else. So they're a little bit forgotten, and they might be an easy thing to let go of. The last issue here is sentimental connections. This is probably the toughest thing of when we're looking at the things that we have stored, especially for a long period of time, up in the attic, down in the basement, the bedroom closets. These could be things that your children have made, right? That you like to look at and remember. This is a great opportunity to start to think about passing those on to them, asking them what they're interested in. They don't. So let me pose the question then. Is it Nancy?
Yeah.
So Nancy, if you say they don't want them, you've tried, do you still have those things?
Got rid of them.
You did. And what had to happen for you up here to let them go?
It was something they did in kindergarten or first grade. Finally, I did go through all their paperworks, the special ones that I kept. Those they took because they had fun looking through it. But any little crafty things, I think they were embarrassed by it.
So,
They really didn't want the little vase that they made. That was kind of,
yeah, the thing out of paper mache, or yeah. Yeah, my nephew one time made for me, abstract art is the only way I could describe it, a work in clay with painting. And of course this was clay in the summer program, so there's no kiln to fire this in. And fortunately one day it fell on the floor. So it went into a lot of oops, I guess we'll say goodbye to that. But was there, what happened in your mind that you finally could say, okay, I can let them go? Was it just that they were embarrassed by them and didn't want them?
that too, and you just were in the
So it really, so you were feeling guilty enough as a mom that you wanted to store them away somewhere where no one would see them, but you weren't proud enough to put them out. Okay, I think we see what kind of mom you are. Okay. No, I understand completely. We sort of have to get used to the fact that if they don't really want them, and if they aren't really special and unique, then maybe it's okay to just let them go. That if they would have gone in the trash 20 years ago, maybe that would have been easier. Yes?
Is part of the sentimental connection when people keep things because they think it's worth something? My sister's a hoarder, and I'm the opposite. And she said, well, I have to keep mom's dishes, they're worth something. No, they're not.
Yeah, that's interesting. She's asking about, is part of that sentimental connection the reason being that the things are worth something. And I can understand that piece because like the inheritance absorption, we get that idea of, ooh, wow, I could sell this and retire on this. I'm talking to Sean about what I'm going to get for those dishes. And you are absolutely right that the value of those things is really plummeting. Remember the 15%? The millions of people who are moving each year and are letting go of those things, there's a glut of that stuff on the market. So the value isn't there the way it used to be.
And she has our Barbies. It's like, well, we played with them. Nobody wants them. The Barbies had to have been kept in their box.
She's got the Barbies too, and the ones, and not pristine, nice Barbies. Yeah, they're garage sale Barbies, aren't they? Yeah, I mean literally. They would be even. So yeah, sometimes that monetary connection is another roadblock for people that they want to hold on to things. So how we overcome that is we go to a place called eBay and we type in a description of what that item is. And we find out exactly what people are willing to pay for it. And that usually brings a sense of reality to folks. So try that strategy with her and see. But you're right, that can be with the sentiment and with the value. People can get stuck very easily. And it's a tough one for going in. The other thing that I find sometimes happens in this sentimental connection area is we've received gifts from people. So we get hooked again by guilt that we need to keep the gift because of our relationship with the person. So what's really important for you to remember is the thing that you receive from someone, the thing that I hand you, Mike, on your birthday, this is really just a symbol. The thing that I'm giving you, the gift, is my sentiment, how I feel about you, and the fact that you're having a birthday, and I want you to have a great birthday, and here's a lottery ticket for you for that. Or here's, some other fruitcake for you, a six-pack of beer. Notice these are consumables I'm talking about, usables. And so the idea is the thing he can accept, appreciate, and if it doesn't fit in his life, if it isn't a consumable, or even if it is and he doesn't want it, he could pass that on. But he can keep the gift. He can keep that feeling that I'm expressing to him and accept that, because that's what's really important, right? Not the symbol. Who's got an example of a gift that they've received that kind of falls in this category? Anybody? A what? A pasta maker, sure. Because you really want to get into the business of making pasta when you can go buy it at the store for 69 cents a box. Or $2.19 for the really good stuff, right? Exactly. Yeah. So the person who gave it to you maybe knows you like to cook and thought this would be a good idea. So you can appreciate that, right? And accept that. And then maybe you can sell the pasta maker if it's brand new and in a box and get that money invested into something else that you would like to do. Maybe there's a certain Xylus cheese grater that you'd love to get your hands on that would be wonderful in your cooking. So see, what you can do is transfer what that value is to something that really works for you. So keep in mind which one of these or how many of these might be issues for you when you get to that place where you're actually going to begin that deep clearing of space. Now, what I want to do is give you some strategies. This is where the life hacks, as the kids call them, comes into play of how you can let go of things. So first, let's start with the maintenance clearing, because there are some strategies that you can employ that can become habits and make it easier to maintain that open space so it doesn't get cluttered so often. And one of them is called the clutter box. How the clutter box works is some kind of container. I usually think of something about a fairly good sized box or like a Rubbermaid tub. gets designated with a label called the clutter box. At a predetermined time each day in the house, one person who for a week at a time is the clutter patrol chief will go through the house, and everything that's out in the open in the common areas being the kitchen, the family room, the entry area, not so much in bedrooms, not so much in bathrooms, but in those spaces, they pick everything up that's in the open and put it in the clutter box. Next morning, they and other people in the house go to the clutter box and one by one put things away. So they can take their thing, they can take, oh, that's right, this is a tool that goes downstairs in the workshop. I'll pick that up and take that downstairs. And then come back up, oh, there's a magazine. I want to read that, so I'm going to go put it in the magazine holder in the family room. In other words, you empty it out as quickly as you can. And this question came up at the lunchtime when one wife said, what if you take things out but the other person doesn't take things out? And I said, well, their things will continue to be stored in the clutter box until you have a second clutter box and a third clutter box and perhaps even a fourth. Eventually, if people want things, they will empty them and put them back in the place. So in other words, you're kind of making it a little bit easier instead of like running from here to there to there. At night when you're kind of tired, you put it all in one location, and then in the morning when you have energy, now you disperse things to where they belong. How many people like this kind of a strategy? Okay, so it's going to work for a few of you. It's really good with kids and kids stuff. As a matter of fact, you can have some penalties in there, if you like, with the kids to help reinforce the habit and the routine of putting their stuff away. Ask me afterwards and I'll tell you. Second routine here is this idea of pick up 9 things in the morning, 9 things in the afternoon. 9 is there for a particular reason. Anyone familiar with feng shui? So feng shui, an Asian, how should I call it, an Asian way of looking at how you live your life and energy in the world. Not to get too metaphysical here, but the idea is 9 is a really positive and productive number in the world of feng shui and releasing energy. So that's why we say 9 things in the morning, 9 at night. And all this is literally picking up 9 things and putting them away. And then you're done. You're done for the day. You don't have to worry about anything else. You can take out and use as much stuff as you want and leave it out, and that's fine. And then at night, 9 more things, put those away. If you do this consistently, what happens is you start to put things away quicker. You don't wait for the 9 and 9. You actually start to develop a habit of putting things back where they belong when you're done with them, or at least being aware of that. So it kind of helps. How many of you like this strategy? Will this be one that will work? Okay. And you might do a combination of these. The last one is my favorite, the full container. And the reason it's my favorite is because you don't have to plan for it at all. The container tells you when it's time for you to declutter, when it's full, right? So an example of this, let's say that you have a basket next to your reading chair, and in it you've got catalogs or magazines or a combination thereof. When that basket is full and you're trying to put one more catalog on top, that's your signal to dump everything out on the floor and put back in only the things that are current. Because you know when you put that Pottery Barn catalog on top, there's at least 3 or 4 of them underneath there, right? Because you're getting them really frequently. So this is your ability to maintain, have the information that you want when you need it, but get rid of the clutter. And again, you don't have to plan for it. Makes it easy. Here's another example. I have a client who is in the habit of when he gets home each day, reaching into his pockets and pulling out any receipts that are in his pockets or his wallet and putting them on his nightstand. Is that true for anybody else here? Oh, come on. I know you guys do this. It's not just Mike. So here's what I did with him. We looked at the space and we said, well, let's take this attractive box again that he had that was about this big, about like this and this. And I said, let's put that where you put the receipts. And then you can add the receipts to it. It was, deep enough. There could be at least a week's worth, if not more. And you put the receipts in there. When you get to the top, you got to dump it out, sort through, figure out the ones that you still want to keep, those that you don't need anymore because you're past the return date or you've used the item and you don't need to return it. Go ahead and shred those and get rid of them, and then now you're left with that. That's actually worked for him for about 2 years. He stays fairly consistent and he never gets above that. How many of you like this idea, the full container? Yeah. And it's great when you can have the system present itself to you and you don't have to work for it. So those are some quick ways that you can deal with the maintenance type of clearing. Now, here's some strategies and ideas around the deep clearing, because again, this is the biggie, this is the tough one, right? Most important, you have to think of this process as a marathon. You cannot think of it as a sprint race. As motivated as you might be when you leave here today, you are not going to get through this weekend. You're not even going to get through it this weekend and next weekend, or even the weekend after that. This is going to take you a while. When I work with clients, my suggestion is you plan a year in advance to do your decluttering, to get your home ready, to be able to move and put on the market. 1 year's worth is a reasonable pace so that you can still live your life, because you still want to be able to go on vacation, right? You still want to pursue your hobbies. You still want to come to events like this. You still want to do the things that make you happy in life. You don't want to spend hour after hour after hour, day after day after day doing this. So you definitely want to get in the mindset, this is going to take a while. This is not going to be something quick. The other thing that can be helpful is to look at some type of a planning tool, like this calendar that I made up. Just has 12 boxes in it, and there's 1 month of each of the months of the year for each box. And plan out, let me focus on one room at a time. That's so much easier than spending one weekend working in the kitchen and then the next week doing some things downstairs in the basement, then going out to the garage. You gain more success and momentum if you can stay focused on that one area at a time. So there's also a reason why certain times of the year you may want to be in certain places. So we're April now. An ideal place to focus on in April is the attic. The reason why? What do you think? That's right. It's cool. It's comfortably cool. It's not cold like January. It's not hot like July. It's in the transition months of fall and spring. It just works really great to be up there pulling things out, realigning things, repackaging, putting things back. Now, I have a certain place that I like to work in July. In my house, that's the basement, because the basement stays nice and cool. You got July. I don't like hot weather. So that's where you'll find me working down there. Makes it really easy to be able to get through there. So using a planning calendar helps you focus your energy on one space per month, and then it also gives you the opportunity to plan how best to go through the category of rooms within your home. You're going to want to make some lists as you are working through these spaces. And the reason I say that is because there are things that you're going to identify as you go from room to room that you are not going to need or take with you when you leave this space. But you're not necessarily going to get rid of them right now. So let's say that you have a large armoire in a guest bedroom. And you know it's really a big piece of furniture. It's likely not going to fit into a smaller space or look good for scale. It doesn't mean you have to get rid of the armoire now, but you want to put it on a list to identify, because you've already processed and thought about that. You want to take away the need to make that decision again down the road by relegating it to this list of things that I will sell or donate or give away when I move that I'm not taking to where I live next. You also want to make a list of things that you will give to family and friends that they'll also take when you move, but not necessarily before that. So maybe your son has always loved your small secretary desk that's in the office or the living room. You may say, sure, you can have it when we move, but not until we move. Or maybe your daughter's the one who thinks those special cookware things, now that she's the entertainer in the family, that you've got would be wonderful. Well, maybe you're going to keep them until the time in which you move, because you won't want to be storing the roasting pan and the steamer and all the other kinds of accoutrements that you have for that. Make sense? Yeah. So this way you take and get a little bit of that work done ahead of time. You also want to make sure that you start to work up contacts for where your stuff is going to go. So a little bit of what you asked about the china. Because it's sort of like, well, where can I sell the china? Or can I even sell it? Do I have to just give it away? So you think through options like, there is a company called Replacements. Is anybody familiar with that? Yep. Replacements has replacements for china, crystal, and silverware. Silver, whether it's silver plate or actual silver, in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of designs. So they often will buy your sets of china, particularly if they're not complete sets, because they are the go-to place for people who want to finish out a set. Now, I want you to be prepared to be disappointed, because they're not going to offer you a lot of money. So if you want to get an idea of about how much you'll get, go to Replacements, see if they sell the china that you have, look at what they're selling it for, and then divide that by 3. You will probably get offered about 1/3 of the price. The things that you'll get the most money for are the individual pieces, the serving platters, the butter dish, the gravy boat, because of course there's only one of those in every set. Whereas the actual plates, sometimes you're offered literally $3 for a china plate that maybe was $20 originally, because there's so many of them out there. So that's one thing you might do. At the luncheon group, someone had a great idea that they shared. They talked to a couple of nursing homes that they knew people at. One was where a mother was, and one was, I think, where an aunt was. And the people at the nursing home, the activities directors, were thrilled to get a set of china, because they would have activities with the women where they would put soup in the cups, and they would put little sandwiches on the plates and have kind of a tea party, a little tea service. So that you have to get creative about that. I will mention to you that I have a class I teach called Downsizing, Making a Daunting Task Doable. I've got flyers up here. It's coming up in May. It's going to be in the Egan Apple Valley, Rosemont area through their community education program. Just a one-night class, but 2.5 hours of exactly how step-by-step to do this process of downsizing. And the really big valuable thing is tons of resources of where things can go and how to eliminate those things, because we're trying to have some meaning in that. We're trying to see if we can. So feel free to come and get a flyer and come to the class. And as a matter of fact, at the end, we're going to have a drawing for a free admission to this class. So stay on your toes. You're also going to need to plan in your schedule, not just time to go through things, but time to manage those choices. It takes time to look on eBay and Replacements. It takes time to set up a Craigslist ad. It takes time to go to an antique dealer and work with them. It even takes time to drive to Goodwill, Salvation Army, and ARC to drop off your donations. So make sure that that's a part of your plan and your cycle of working in a space. It's also helpful to have some kind of a reward that you give yourself in acknowledgement of having spent the time and effort you've put into this process. Now, I have lots of clients who say, oh, believe you me, if I just have closets that are cleared and not full of stuff, if this place has, half the number of things in it, that will be reward enough for me. And I said, well, that might be true the first month, and maybe even the second month. But when you get to the third and the fourth month, you're going to need something tangible. You're going to need something to help pull you along. So think ahead of what those kinds of rewards could be. Again, I really encourage you to look at things that are more experiential or consumable and not like a shopping trip out, to buy something new to bring back home. So it can be as easy as if you and your spouse have been working for a couple of hours, maybe saying, well, let's order pizza in tonight, or go get Chinese, or let's rent a movie tonight as kind of our reward. Or for those of you who are the book lovers, to say, well, I get to have an hour and a half of guilt-free reading. Wouldn't that be fun? Calling a friend, taking the dog for a walk. It can be any number of things. It can be very simple. But it is important. It's important because with that reward piece, you're more likely to be motivated to come back again because you get a good feeling about it. It's not just the things going away, but I'm really making progress here. This is great. I had one client family where they paid themselves. We had a jar, big jar, a really tall one, clear glass, out in the kitchen, and they agreed upon a rate per hour. So for every hour they worked, they put cash into that thing. And at the end of the year, they cashed that out and used it to make a purchase of something that they really wanted. So that's another way that you can do it. Now, of course, you got to make sure people don't dip into the fund along the way. You might have to have a very narrow top here so you can't reach in and make that easy. But the idea is to acknowledge the hard work you put into each and every session. And then you just got to keep coming back. Realize, again, it's that marathon. It's going to take more than one session to go through the garage. It's going to take 5 or 6 to go through the attic, maybe 10 or 12 to go through the basement. The great part is when you focus on one room in a month, if you get done early, yay, you get a vacation for a week or two. And then you just start up again the beginning of the next month. And so you continue to have this positive experience of being able to look at things and make decisions and choices. Okay, so I've given you the kind of the hacks, the easy strategies on how to go about it, and we've talked about why you have all this stuff. But now comes the hard part, how to get started. Has anybody had trouble getting started when they wanted to do decluttering? Yeah? What kinds of things do you find yourself doing instead? Yeah, anything, yeah. I need to go shopping. Or the yard looks like I should work on the garden for a little while. Or anything. When I always laugh at this, when I was in graduate school and I had to write a paper, that's another one of those procrastination things. It was the time in my life that my house was the cleanest. Because I would clean anything in my house before I would sit down to write that paper until I absolutely had to do it. So we always do make up these excuses. So I'm going to give you 2 strategies that you can pick which one is going to work for you. So you can ask yourself, am I a diver or am I a waiter? Well, let me explain what that means before you answer, because you might be surprised. If you want to use the diver strategy, you are literally going to dive in, and you're going to dive in that place in your house that it would be the hardest, the most difficult, the most challenging to make decisions about letting go of things. Who knows right now what part of their house that is? Who can share with me? What part is that?
Well, I've got a family room that we don't really use. We use the living room instead, and so the family room is filled up with stuff. Whenever we don't know what to do with something, down it goes.
Kind of become the dumping ground. She's saying her family room. It's kind of become that. So they don't use it. And
It's a big room and it's full.
it's a big room. Like as big as this room?
Oh, not quite.
Not quite, but big enough, right? That you have enough things in there. That would be pretty tough because there's going to be a lot of different kinds of things in there. There's typical things that you would have in a family room, and now there's all that clutter, right? that you've added. Somebody over here had an idea? Yes.
The basement.
The basement. Tell me why the basement's going to be the hardest.
Trying to separate out our kids' stuff, and I'll just say to them, do you want to keep it, or do you want to have us get rid of it for you?
So the hard part here is it's kids' stuff primarily down there, and you're going to have to get them involved in the process somewhere to be able to either take it away or take it away. I say that because they should just take it away, and if they want it, they can keep it, and if they don't want it, they can throw it away. Because it doesn't have to be your decision or your work. It really can just be boxes of their stuff. But that's still hard because you kind of risk the emotional exchange there. And some people are going to be happy, some people are going to be sad. I had a client whose children were in their 30s, and he was certain they didn't have room in their house for their childhood things. I said, you're moving from here. You don't have room in their house. Let them decide if they have room or not. You don't have to be the one anymore. They're adults. And if they want to, if they don't have room, then they can rent a storage unit if that's important to them. You don't have to be the one to do that. So, but I think you're right that makes sense that that's going to be hard. So the reason why you're doing this is you want to dive in and get some momentum going with the tough decisions so that the easier stuff comes your way. It's sort of like Mark Twain says, if you have to swallow a frog, don't look at it too long. And if you have to swallow 2 frogs, don't swallow the little one first. So you do hardest first, and then everything else is easier after that. So what I'm suggesting to do this strategy, pick that hard space and then devote a whole weekend to kickstart it. Now you may not be done in the weekend, but you're going to make a lot of progress. And that weekend means you do sometime on Friday, sometime on Saturday, sometime on Sunday. My recommendation is 2 to 3 hours max for you to work on any area. If you go more than that without a break of at least an hour, you're going to burn yourself out. And this might well be the place where you're going to have to be preemptive about the action that needs to be taken and follow up. You're going to have to already have those kids plan to come and be there. Or for you in that living room, you may have to have a team with you because it could be a lot of different stuff that's there. You may need some physical help to shift and move furniture to make things work and to really get through things. So taking care of the stuff that you're getting rid of right away and having that support there will make this a successful strategy. Okay, so that's the diver. Now, the waiter, yeah, that's for that person who wants to maybe just dip their toe into the process. Just the opposite. You're going to look for the easiest place to make decisions because you're already kind of procrastinating, you're already a little reticent. So we've got to get some success immediately, like within an hour. You've got to feel good about something. So who here can think of a space in their home that would be really easy to jump into and designate first? Guest bedroom. And why is it easy for you to do that room?
It looks really good till you open the closet. It's really pretty.
I love that. She says it looks really good till you open the closet. And then not so pretty, right? And there. So the easy part would be not the closet. It'd be the open room space. Okay, I like that. I like that.
The easy part would be that room because it's just the closet.
Oh, I see. Okay, the rest of the room's okay. It's really just the closet. Plus, you probably have a bed there that you can lay things out on and be able to view and look and make choices and decisions and walk and shut the door if you're not done. I like that. So to make this strategy work, you're going to set up appointments for yourself. Might be multiple appointments in that space, but set them up in your calendar and be clear through this next week, and it might be more weeks of the month. And then again, once you get done with making a decision about something that's leaving, no matter where it's going to, get it out of there as fast as you can. You don't want to accumulate and keep all this stuff there because you want it, see, remember, as a waiter, You need to have some positive reinforcement. So you'll get psyched if you're going to a drop-off location for donation, or if you're taking your books to Half Price Books and dropping off there, because there were a bunch of old books in there. You'll feel good about that. Whatever the action is. Or maybe there's a bag to return of something to Target and you're just at your 90-day window. So you want to quickly get it there. You'll feel good about that. And then that will boost you into going more. So how many of you feel like you're more the divers? I got divers? Okay. A few divers. Literally? Is that you're going to be going through the diving equipment? Okay. Wouldn't be my first time doing that one. How about waiters? How many feel better as a waiter? Okay. It's key to pick the style that's right for you. And if your spouse has a different style than you do, then you just separate and work in different areas. So, you don't mess with the waiters, you don't mess with the divers. You might be an assist to the diver, but more so you kind of work your own areas, because this is just the getting started. Once you've got started, again, you're going to go back to your planning calendar and you may do some team approach and working together. Now, you've got your strategy, you know where you're working, you got your hacks to kind of help make it go well. The last thing is to know what step by step, what are the mechanics of actually doing this process. And this may seem like a no-brainer to you, but I can tell you, I know many people who have not been successful in the process because they didn't really think through the best course of action to make it work for them. A lot of times when we declutter, especially like a closet, we'll take things out and we'll start to have piles. Well, this I have to take back to my sister. Oh, there's a library book. I better get that back so I can get off their bad list. These are donation things. Oh, these things belong in the kitchen. I don't know why they're here. Oh, these are for my son. And you end up with pile after pile after pile after pile after pile. After a while, you've had enough and you're done, right? And you leave the room. But all of a sudden, oh my gosh, I have a guest coming. What will I do? I shove it all back in the closet and you start from scratch again. So that's why this is a little bit different. We're going to focus on one area, and one at a time you're going to pull out the category of items that are alike in that space. So let's say we're in a clothing closet. To start, you may say, I'm going to pull all the shoes out first. I'm going to make my decisions about shoes. I'm going to get rid of the ones that don't work anymore, that I have to give away, or if I have to throw away. And then I'm only left with the ones that I want to keep, and I'll put those back in. Now I'll go to another category. I think I will pick jackets. Let me pull out all the jackets, try them on, again, make your choices, and put them back in. As you get stopped in the process, because you're working category at a time, you're not in this position where you have to shove everything back in, right? You just have to maybe leave yourself a note of where you left off, so the next time you come back, you'll know what category to pick up with. So focus on one area and a category at a time. Yes?
I'm just being funny, but does that mean if you find that library book, you can't drop everything and run to the library?
You are so funny. Yes. Yes. That does mean that if you have a library book that's supposed to be returned, you don't stop right then and go there. That's where people, the downfall. That scattered type of decluttering, where you get distracted and you're not staying focused on that one spot. As I mentioned before, I think 2 to 3 hours is the max you should work. For some of you, that might be a half an hour or 45 minutes at a time. Everybody's kind of got the best rhythm. And so you'll figure that out. And that's for how long you should make those appointments. Again, you might have multiple appointments in a day if you want to make it a decluttering day. You just don't want everything back to back. You want to have some breaks with that. This is also the time to think about, should we have a team approach? Is there a value in working in the basement, for example? The team approach might be to get the kids over there, set up some bins and containers with their names on it, and have them help and participate with what goes in. They can help make the decision right there to say, I do want to keep this, and then have a large garbage barrel, and I don't want that, and that's garbage. Or if it's something donatable, another donatable box. So of course you're going to have some bins and containers labeled for either for people or for destinations of where these things have to be. By the way, one of the bins that I like in this process is called Move On. Move on. The reason why is you might have 5 or 6 unusual things that go to different parts of the house. Well, if I put them all in the move on container, if I can't take care of it right away, I can later pick that up and go around the house and distribute it and bring it back. And I don't have that mess that's there. Again, you're going to have some choices here that you're making that you want to manage. Either getting things posted for sale, dropped off for donation, returned to people. Plan that in your calendar, because if you don't, it's just going to sit there until you're ready to take that action. And again, you want to have those rewards that are reasonable ahead of time so that you know you can move ahead. Keep coming back till the area is finished. And when you have, you can celebrate. There's that room is done. Wonderful. Now I'm 1/12 of the way there to being able to be clutter-free. And that's really what we're looking for, is that opportunity to live clutter-free. Well, I want to thank you all for your time and attention. I want to thank Summit Investment Advisors for having me here today. And I wish you the best on your road traveling from cluttered to clutter-free. Thank you very much.